What's today, Tuesday? I hope you're all well. If you see me kind of looking back and forth, I have my Facebook up, I have my Instagram up, and I'm just really excited to talk to you all about um, what it is that we do, right? As female wedding photographers. I'm gonna wave to a few of you. Hello, hello, hello. I'm so happy you're here, honestly. Hello. It's so nice to see the interaction, so I really, really appreciate that. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Erica Lehman, and I am a wedding photographer in the Hudson Valley of New York. And a couple of years ago, I also started a mentorship journey. So I also serve as a mentor for female ambitious wedding photographers in business because really felt like the business end of the photography world was drastically underserved. And I have a background in business. I have, created my own business over the past 10, 11, 12 years. And I also have both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in business. So I understand business, I understand data, I understand client experience. It's really, really important to me to bring all these things together. And it's really important to me to teach it because to me, I'm never interested in keeping anything close to my chest. If what I can provide and what I can teach will make another person's life better, and then that will trickle down to the other people that they interact with and their own clients, then that makes me feel like that's a win, right? Why wouldn't I feel like that's a win? And that's what I was seeing too, was that there seemed to be a lot of secrecy around what made certain wedding photographers successful and what didn't, right? I'm super not about that life. Because again, if I can do something well and I can teach you how to do something well, then we all win, right? Nobody loses in that situation. So, I first wanted to tell you a little bit about my origin story. And back when I was in college, I took I think it was like a three credit elective, one course in college that was a photojournalism course. And I loved it. And I'm going to tell you straight up right now, the tech pieces of it, I was terrible at. But I was really good at capturing moments. And that's what I loved about it. I honestly think that I failed a few of the tech tests in that course because the tech did not resonate with me, but the experience did. And I think that's what happens to a lot of us is that the experience resonates with us more than knowing how to adjust our settings, more than knowing how to, pose and get to the next moment, right? And so that's where a lot of us begin our journey is in the moment and with the moment and wanting to document these really beautiful milestones for people and with people. And when I first started photographing anything, I would photograph senior sessions for literally a cup of coffee, you guys. Like, to me, I was like, oh my God, a cup of Starbucks coffee is so worth whatever I'm providing here. That was $5. $5. And I thought it was fine. Um, but when I was doing all that stuff, I really didn't have much of a framework for my business. So even though I was in school for business and, very recently afterwards had graduated with a bachelor's degree in business and music, two things together, um, I really didn't have much of a framework. I kind of flew by the seat of my pants where I was like, okay, these people are going to hire me. I'll just make sure that we touch base, that we have a time to meet, et cetera, et cetera. So I didn't really have contracts in place. I didn't have payment options in place. And when I started charging for sessions, it actually was a big step for me because I went from charging a cup of coffee to charging $50 for an hour long session. And that was like a big deal for me. And also then deciding deliverables. So at the time, USBs weren't a big deal, online gallery options weren't a big deal. And so I really didn't have a ton of information that I could pull from in order to provide beautiful deliverables. So I literally used to just give people images on a CD. I think at one point I was even just writing on them and then I upgraded to stickers on the CD. So very high tech. But the thing there was that um, I really didn't have a community. I didn't have a community to draw from. I didn't have biz besties. I didn't have anything available to me at the time, because you have to remember that was 10, 11 years ago. So I was so young. I was only 22, 23, and there weren't things like the Rising Tide Society. There weren't things like creative collectives in the local area. It just was not a thing, and there was a lot of secrecy again around what makes a person successful in the wedding industry as a whole, and especially in the wedding photography industry. And so I just kind of kept going, kept going, kept going, and kept building and growing and growing. But it took me some time to get to a point in my business where I felt comfortable and where I felt like what I'm providing is excellent, and what, like, the people that I'm getting to work with are awesome. Right? It took me time. And I think that's something to keep in mind, is that when we're on our own entrepreneurship journeys, we see all of these, messages that we get from the media that say, oh my gosh, like this person, overnight success. This person, overnight success. This person was found on YouTube. This person was found through a blog. This person was found this way, this way, this way, this way. And so we think that overnight success is just ours to claim. And the thing with overnight success is that it's not lasting. It can't be lasting because it has no roots. And so when you grow slow, then you're able to grow roots, and you're also able to make mistakes without them having far reaching impact. And so I grew slowly, really slowly. And sometimes slowly, so slowly in that I questioned, is this my role? Is this my calling? What am I doing here? There was a point in like 2014, 15, 16 that I was like, what am I doing? Is this even worth it? Because I wasn't seeing what I wanted to be my return. It wasn't that I wasn't seeing a return, it was that I wasn't seeing what I wanted to see in my return. So finally, I got to a point about like 7, 8 years into my business where my business just exploded. I had my biggest wedding season yet, and there was so much in it, and so much beauty and gorgeousness and excellency and beautiful people inside and out. And I was like, okay, like, I guess this is part of me arriving. Like, am I arriving? I think so, maybe. Right? And so I was so, so, so happy to have that season. And I was so happy and proud of all of the hard work that I had put into this, that I had laid this framework far before I actually saw the fruits of my labor, way far before. And that's the thing, is that often we put down these roots, we put down these seeds, and we don't see them grow for years. And that's what makes us question, right? And I felt that. I have been there. I have been there. And I remember towards the end of that season, I was so happy and so proud, but I was so burnt out. I felt like by the time I got to October, November, I still had some weddings that I needed to show up for and show up well for. And I remember thinking, not on the wedding days themselves, because if I need to pull something together, then I will pull something together. Like, there's no way I'm going to show up terrible on a wedding day. It is not allowed to happen in my world. But like the weeks in between these weddings, because these weddings were on the weekends, I would think to myself, I just have to get through this. I just need to put one step in front of the other. This is just a hustle season. And it was, right? So these things that I said to myself, these mantras that I said to myself, were not wrong in the slightest, but things could have been better if I had certain frameworks in place, right? Things could have been better. I could have shown up in different and better ways, because I was overextending myself in so many ways, because I didn't have proper frameworks in place that I needed to have. And I didn't want to go through that season like that. Who wants to go through a season that you're feeling successful in and also feel bogged down by it at the same time? Who wants to feel bogged down by their own success? So I felt like I was constantly both being rushed and exhausted at the same time. And those are in constant combat with each other, right? When you are exhausted, but you're feeling rushed, you're kind of like, whoa, I don't want to do anything here. What's going on? I felt like I was always under the gun, not necessarily, not ever, honestly, from my photography clients, but I felt like I was constantly under the gun by needing to deliver images in time frames that I had promised, right? And I stuck to those for sure. Like I said, I will never show up horrible. But that was exhausting. I was waking up early, way early, to be able to provide this, like to be able to edit these images. I was editing at my lunch break, which I still do, and I think that's a great um, method to get some things done is your lunch break at a 9 to 5. And then I was editing in the evening. And when I look back at these weddings, these clients loved their photos, and their photos were beautiful, right? They were beautiful, amazing. But when I look at them, I think to myself, huh, I this could have been done a little differently and a little more in excellence. That's what I think. And so when I look back on it, I'm like, I wish that I hadn't felt this way, because I think if I hadn't felt this way, I would have been able to show up not only good, but excellent from the day of to the delivery, right? And that's what I really wanted. I wanted that. And also because I was so focused on my clients, which as a wedding photographer, you should be, right? Like there is no part of it, honestly, and I don't want to work with people, honestly, to mentor that think that they can just get into the wedding photography game for the money of it. That's not my scene, not interested in it. Do I believe everybody should be paid what they should be paid? Yes. Should I do I believe that everybody should be paid what they need to be paid to pay their bills? Absolutely. Do I believe time is money? Yes, right? But I also think there is a really sacred responsibility in being a wedding photographer, because you're showing up on somebody's best day. And far be it from you, and far be it from me, to show up on one of these days not well, not treating it like a sacred responsibility, because it is. It really, really, really is. So, like, can you make a decent amount of money doing it? Yeah. But should that be why you're here? No. Right? So, intention is important. Intention is like really important. But going back to that, I was so focused on my clients that my focus couldn't be elsewhere. I missed really important celebrations in my own family for my nieces and nephews. And I missed just hanging out on Sunday evenings with my family, which is so important to me. I missed these things because I was so focused on keeping my head above water that I couldn't enjoy what I had actually created. And isn't that something? That we lay down these roots, we plant these seeds, and we get to a point that we see the fruits of our labor and we can't enjoy them because we're just trying to keep our heads above water. That's something, right? So like think about that. And so that year that I first hit all of those, like my busiest year in wedding photography, that year I hit 6 figures in my business. And I was like, awesome, this is amazing, right? But it didn't feel worth it. And isn't that interesting as well, right? Because I was so busy trying to keep my head above water, I couldn't enjoy the success I had created and been blessed with. I couldn't enjoy my family. And I couldn't enjoy, honestly, at some points, my clients, who were excellent, wonderful people. But I couldn't show up in enjoyment for them. It wasn't possible because I was so busy treading water, right? I was so busy because I didn't have certain frameworks in place that created spaciousness in my life and in my business. I was so proud after that season, but I was so exhausted. And that season, I was charging not super low for my weddings, but I looked back and I was charging probably like low to mid range, right? So some people had booked me a couple of years prior when I was only charging $2,000 for weddings. And then I was all the way, it was like a range of $2,000 to $4,000. And I had always been really adverse to raising my prices because I felt like this is a sacred responsibility. This is a sacred blessing to be able to be here on somebody's wedding day. How am I going to charge them for that? That was like a really hard quandary for them. And I think that's something that actually comes up for a lot of us, whether we're male or female, right? A lot of us, as even though I said earlier, there are some of us that are in this industry just to make money, there are also a lot of us who are in it to serve. And that's hard, right? That it feels like there's almost it's like a war between wanting to serve and also needing to pay your bills, which is so weird. And and I had to learn that both are available. Both are available. Both are able to be taken advantage of. Both are able to be intertwined in your life, but also still separate. So I could serve and serve well, and I could charge and charge well. And when I charged well, and when I charged the rates that I needed to charge, I was able to then show up better because it created spaciousness in my life. It created spaciousness in my business. I wasn't constantly running from wedding to session to wedding to session to wedding to session and then trying to figure out my social media in the downtime. You know, when you charge what you need to charge, and that's the key. When you charge what you need to charge, you create spaciousness in your business, and you create the ability to show up well and honestly better because you're not run down. You're not spent. So you're charging what you need to charge, not only because you need to pay your bills, but because you need to also protect your energy. So I had to be mindful that I had to kind of have rates and stick to them, and that my rates had to be dictated by what I needed in my life, both how I needed to pay my bills and how I needed to protect my energy so that I could show up well. So often we forget that money is just a tool. So often we forget that money doesn't dictate our worth. So often we forget that when we're charging something for our services and we say, hey, this is what my thing is worth, this is what I charge, and somebody says, that's out of our budget. So often we let that determine our sense of worth, and it's just not true. It's just not true. If you're out of somebody's budget, fine. That's fine. That's your pricing doing its work. That's your pricing taking out people that are not aligned for you. That's your pricing doing its work. When somebody says to you, hey, you're out of our budget, there is nothing wrong with that. You have your priorities, they have their priorities. Everybody's priorities are different, but they don't dictate each other's, right? So if somebody says to you, hey, my budget is XYZ, and you're like, oh, well, my cost is 1, 2, 3, then they're not aligned, they don't match. You're not a match. That's all it is. You're not a match. And that doesn't mean that you're worth any less. That doesn't mean you should decrease your prices. That doesn't mean that they're scumbags for not paying your prices. It's related but not connected. And I think that's something to keep in mind. So it's just really important when you're thinking about charging to reflect on the level of care that you want to provide to your clients, not only in what your deliverables are, not only in the images that you create, not only in the galleries that you send to them, not only in the welcome gifts, not only in the check-ins, right? But it's also in the energy that you're showing up in. You are the only one who can protect your energy. You can't expect for other people to do that for you. And pricing is a tool that helps you to do that. That's all it is. It's a tool. It doesn't dictate your worth. And you don't need to be booked up every single weekend to have a profitable wedding photography business. If you're priced at a price point that covers your needs and protects your energy, then my bet would be that you would really only need to be booking 10 to 20 weddings per year. Think about it. I've been there. If this makes you feel uncomfortable, I've been there. So I think if this is resonating with you, this is just part of my story, right? I went from charging a cup of coffee to charging a cup of coffee for a session to charging $550 for a session and $6,000 for a wedding. When the first wedding that I ever did, I charged $500 and I didn't even have a contract in place. It's crazy. And we're allowed to grow, we're allowed to shift, we're allowed to change. Sometimes these things change. Sometimes these things get illuminated in our lives as we go. And I'll tell you, I never had one aha moment. I was never like, ah, this is what I should be doing. It was a lot of trial and error. It was a lot of thinking things through. It was a lot of going through certain experiences to know how I wanted things to go the next time. Whether that was knowing this person wasn't aligned with me, or knowing that I wanted to show up better and that my pricing would help me do that. So again, if this resonated with you, let me know. Send me a little DM. I would love to hear from you. If you're curious about working together and creating frameworks to actually, protect your time, to price yourself profitably, to make it so that you're not spent and so that you don't feel guilty when you can't meet somebody's budget, send me a DM. There's also a link to my new program in my Instagram profile, so find me there. And I think that is everything for today. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for joining me. I so appreciate it. It is an honor to teach you. It's an honor to serve you. Thanks for being here.